Julian sat in silence, an island in a sea of grief, the rhythmic beeping of hospital machines echoing around him. His eyes wandered to the worn leather satchel beneath Alara's bed, where a sliver of a photograph peeked out. He reached for it. It was from Santorini. Alara, laughing freely with her head resting on his shoulder, the turquoise sea behind them. Their anniversary. A moment untouched by secrecy. A moment they never share with others. Their wedding had been quiet. No grand church, no guests. Just them in a small registry office. Alara wore lavender and a nervous smile. Julian wore the same suit he'd once interviewed in. Two close friends were the only witnesses. No announcements, no photos posted. Alara had said she didn't want the noise, but Julian had always known the truth. Her family wouldn't have accepted it. He remembered how she slipped off her wedding ring before visiting her parents. The rehearsed excuses. The holidays spent apart. And every time, he had accepted it. Not out of weakness, but because he loved her without conditions. One Christmas Eve, she returned late from her family's dinner, her makeup smudged and eyes tired. "Not the right time," she whispered. Julian said nothing. He held her close, letting the silence speak for them. Later that night, she asked softly, "Do you ever wish it were easier?" He had replied gently, "Only for your sake." She had nodded, tears in her eyes. "I'm protecting you." It broke something in him, but he never let it show. Now, in the sterile hospital room, Alara's breath grew shallow. Her aunt leaned to another relative and whispered, "Poor man. Just a close friend, I suppose." Julian heard. He always did, but he said nothing. Their love had always existed in the spaces between words. He took the photo from her bag, running his thumb across the glass. Her joy was radiant, a version of Alara the others in this room never knew. He remembered her quiet confessions after long days, the way she saved her deepest truths just for him. The door creaked. Serafina, Alara's mother, stepped in, pearls stiff around her neck. A young clergyman followed, holding a Bible. Serafina moved toward the bed and said to the priest she would want a prayer. "He can wait outside." Her glance flicked toward Julian, that he didn't budge. "This is a family moment," she said coldly. But before Julian could respond, a calm voice interrupted from the doorway. She asked for him to be here. A nurse stepped in, her badge reading in Petrova, RN. She stood tall. "He's not just a guest." Serafina's face hardened. "He's not family." The nurse turned to the priest. "Legally, he is. He's listed as her spouse." Julian reached into his coat and pulled out a worn folder. Quietly, he opened it to show Alara's signed advance directive. Next of kin, Julian Alistair Thorne, spouse. Serafina's face paled. Her eyes dropped to the wedding ring on Alara's hand, one she had pretended not to notice all morning. Julian said nothing. No vindication. No, "I told you so." He only returned the paper to his pocket and gently brushed a strand of hair from Alara's temple. The priest, now uncertain, turned to Julian. "Would you like to join the prayer?" Julian nodded. She believed in grace. "Let's give her that." As the blessing began, Serafina remained frozen at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, disbelief radiating from her. But Julian no longer felt like a stranger. He was not hidden. He was what Alara had always declared, her husband. The funeral took place under a sky bruised with storm clouds. Alara's relatives stood in small, quiet groups, their words shallow and polite. Julian stood apart, not out of choice, but habit, still invisible to them. Yet he didn't care. She had chosen him. Later, in Alara's childhood home, her younger sister Lyra wandered into the study, searching for fragments of her sister's presence. She opened a drawer and found a small, ivory envelope resting on a leather journal. On the front, in Alara's neat handwriting, "To my family. Please read after I'm gone." Lyra brought the letter to the sitting room, where Serafina sat with a tense jaw and Alara's father nursed a forgotten cup of tea. "What's that?" Serafina asked sharply. "Alara left us a letter," Lyra replied softly. She broke the seal and unfolded the paper. Her voice trembled as she began to read. "If you're holding this, I'm already gone. I debated writing this, but there are things I couldn't say while I was alive, and now I have nothing left to lose. You never truly knew Julian. I did. I knew every part of him. The quiet strength that steadied me, the unwavering empathy in his listening, the safety I felt in his arms in a world that often deemed us wrong. You believed I hid him out of shame, but that wasn't the truth. I shielded him from your judgment, your veiled insults, and the polite smiles that never reached your eyes. I couldn't bear to see the man I loved treated as less than he is. Lyra's voice wavered. Across from her, Alistair's gaze was fixed on the patterned rug, and Seraphina's lips were pressed into a thin line. Lyra continued, I was diagnosed a year ago. I didn't tell any of you because I knew what would follow: drama, control, hollow comforts. Instead, I made a different choice. Julian and I remarried in the small chapel by the lake, just the two of us. I wore a simple white dress, and he cried during the vows. It was the happiest day of my life, even knowing it would be one of my last. You may believe he wasn't family, but he was my family, my only true family in the end. So, if you still think he was a mistake, so be it. But know this, my final wish was to be held by him as I left this world, and he granted me that, knowing the coldness he would face in my absence. Please let go of your pride. It's too late for me, but not for you. Love, Alara. Silence fell heavily. Seraphina blinked, her mouth slightly agape, but no words came. Lyra carefully folded the letter and placed it back on the table. No further explanation was needed. Alistair reached for his reading glasses and polished them, though they were spotless. It was the first time in years Lyra had seen tears in her father's eyes. In the hallway, the grandfather clock chimed once, a distant note, like time letting go of a tight grip. Upstairs, the blue journal rested beside an old photo album. And in the quiet of their small apartment, Julian sat, surrounded by empty teacups, the scent of Alara's jasmine lotion lingering on a scarf draped over the armchair. He didn't know the letter had been read, but in a way, he didn't need to. He lived its truth every day. She was his. The sun had reached its zenith, casting a golden warmth across the small cemetery. The cypress trees swayed gently, their branches whispering secrets to the earth. Julian walked slowly down the gravel path, a bouquet of white lilies in his hands. He never rushed when it came to her. Alara's headstone stood beneath an ancient olive tree, simple and elegant, just as she had wished. No elaborate carvings, just her name, the years of her life, and a line beneath in small, graceful lettering. Loved deeply, always returned. Julian knelt beside it, brushing away fallen leaves. He laid the lilies with care and sat back on his heels, letting the silence envelop him. No one else had come today. He hadn't expected them to, and that was okay, he murmured, a slow breath escaping. Hey, Alara, he said softly, his voice barely audible in the breeze. I finally found the courage to go back to that little cove. A faint smile touched his lips, his eyes misting but dry. The old fishing boat is still there, half-rotted. I sat on the rocks, remembered how you laughed when I nearly fell in. You always were braver than me. He lowered his head. They didn't have to know me, he whispered. You did. That was enough. The wind picked up, tugging at his jacket. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photograph, one of the few they had taken together. Alara in a wide-brimmed hat, him squinting in the sunlight, both of them laughing. He placed it beside the flowers, anchoring it with a smooth stone. Behind him, a car door closed quietly. Unseen by Julian, a young woman, a nurse from the hospital, had been passing by on her way back from visiting her grandmother's nearby grave. She paused when she saw him, kneeling, not in despair, but in quiet, profound presence. She watched, a hand resting on her chest, moved by the steadiness of his shoulders, the fullness in his silence. Something shifted in her. She reached for her phone and dialed. Mama, she said softly, her voice thick with tears. No, nothing's wrong. I wanted to tell you I love you. Julian rose to his feet, brushing the earth from his knees, and looked up at the sky. The sun broke fully through the trees, casting a warm light across Alara's headstone like a gentle benediction. He gave a small nod, as if to someone standing beside him, and turned, walking back down the gravel path, his steps slow and steady, carrying not just grief, but a quiet, enduring peace. Sometimes, love doesn't demand an audience. It doesn't seek validation or wait for permission. It simply exists in its purest form, a quiet truth. And when the world looks away, love still shows up anyway. Beneath the rustling leaves, Elera's grave rested in quiet dignity. The breeze stirred gently, a whispered memory against the stone. Beside it lay a single, faded photograph, Elera and Julian, arms intertwined, their laughter echoing from the sun-drenched image. The universe seemed to pause, acknowledging a love that needed no grand pronouncements, only the unwavering gaze of two souls intertwined. The wind played its gentle lullaby through the leaves. No more secrets, no more shame, just love, tender, patient, unapologetic, etched in stone and memory.